When the distress signal first reached Earth's outer listening posts, most analysts assumed it was natural interference, a dying pulsar, perhaps, or the fragmented echo of some long-collapsed civilization. It pulsed in irregular intervals, a fractured rhythm buried beneath cosmic radiation. But I knew better. My name is Cale Arden, Senior Communications Engineer aboard the exploration vessel Astria. I had spent my life studying patterns in noise, finding meaning in chaos. And that signal? It wasn't random. It was broken, which meant it had once been whole. The message originated from the Varelian expanse, a forbidden sector of space humanity had only mapped from a distance. The region pulsed with strange energy signatures, gravitational distortions, and electromagnetic storms capable of tearing ships apart. Naturally, Command decided to send someone expendable. That someone was me. The journey into silence. The trip to the Varelian expanse took 3 months through slipstream corridors. The deeper we traveled, the quieter the galaxy seemed. No trade frequencies. No civilian chatter. Just that fractured signal repeating on a loop. At first it sounded like static. Then, after weeks of analysis, I found the cadence hidden beneath it a linguistic structure. It wasn't a distress call in the human sense. It was a summons. The Astria dropped out of slipstream near a massive planet wreathed in violet storm clouds. Orbiting it was a structure so immense it eclipsed entire continents, a ringed citadel made of dark crystalline metal. Lightning arced across its surface like living veins. "That's our source," Captain Rice muttered over the comms. My console flickered as the signal intensified. It wasn't calling to the ship. It was calling to me. First contact. Docking protocols were overridden before we even requested clearance. The Citadel seized control of our navigation systems and guided us toward a massive aperture in its ring. "Either they want us inside," the captain said grimly, "or we're already dead." The docking clamps locked with a bone-deep vibration. The airlock hissed open. And she was waiting. The AlienQueen of Varelia stood at the end of the illuminated corridor, flanked by towering armored sentinels. She was taller than any human, nearly 7 feet, with opalescent skin that shimmered like starlight on water. Dark, iridescent filaments flowed from her crown like a living mantle. Her eyes were not one color, but many, nebulae trapped within irises. She stepped forward. The sentinels remained still. "You are the one who hears it," she said, her voice resonating not just in my ears but in my bones. I swallowed. "I hear the signal. It's damaged." Her gaze sharpened. "Yes," she said. "It is dying. The broken signal." They brought me to the signal chamber, a colossal spherical room suspended within the heart of the Citadel. At its center floated a crystalline core the size of a starship engine, fractured by deep cracks glowing with unstable light. Energy arced between broken segments. The signal I'd been hearing for months radiated from that shattered structure. "This," the Queen said, stepping beside me, "is our world beacon." She explained that the beacon connected the Varelian species across interstellar distances through quantum resonance. It carried not just messages but memory, history, emotion, shared consciousness woven into signal. And it was failing. "When it collapses," she said quietly, "our colonies will fall silent. Entire worlds will become isolated. Our unity will die." "Why call us?" I asked. "Because your species understands broken things." There was no insult in her tone, only truth. The repair. The beacon wasn't mechanical in any way I recognized. It was biological, crystalline, and quantum entangled all at once. Its fractures weren't simple structural failures. They were disruptions in harmonic resonance. The Varelians had tried to force it back into synchronization. That was their mistake. You can't command harmony, I told her as I studied the energy waves. You have to listen to it. For 3 days I worked in the chamber, calibrating translation matrices between human computational algorithms and the beacon's alien frequency patterns. The Queen remained near, observing silently. She never slept. Neither did I. On the 4th day, I realized the fracture wasn't random damage. It was emotional. The beacon carried collective memory. And something catastrophic, something traumatic, had overwhelmed it. Your people lost something, I said carefully. The Queen's luminous gaze darkened. We lost our previous sovereign, she said. My predecessor. The beacon was bound to her neural imprint. When she was destroyed in a border war, the resonance destabilized. Destroyed, not died. The grief of an entire civilization had cracked their own lifeline. You didn't just lose a leader, I murmured. You lost part of yourselves. Her silence confirmed it. The beacon wasn't broken. It was mourning. The sealing of the chamber to repair it, I needed direct neural synchronization. A bridge between human adaptability and Varelian resonance. The Queen stepped forward before I even finished explaining. I will interface, she said. This could be dangerous, I warned. If our neural patterns clash, then we will shatter together. She extended her hand. The sentinels exited the chamber. The massive doors sealed shut behind them with a thunderous echo. The air changed, thicker, charged. The chamber locked. Only she and I remained. The Queen approached until I could feel the faint warmth radiating from her luminous skin. The beacon pulsed erratically above us, casting fractured light across her features. She raised her hand and placed it over my chest. Her touch was electric. Come closer, human, she whispered. And the chamber responded, energy spiraling around us in tightening arcs. The moment our neural fields connected, the universe dissolved. I was no longer standing in a chamber. I was falling through memory. I saw Varelian cities rising from crystal plains, oceans of bioluminescent life, children linked through shared laughter across light years. I felt the sovereign's presence, an ancient mind woven through every pulse of the beacon. Then I felt her destruction. A flash of war. A rupture. Silence. The grief was staggering. It wasn't just sorrow, it was fragmentation. Billions of minds screaming in isolation. And at the center of it all stood the Queen. Alone. She had inherited the throne in the moment of catastrophe. No time to mourn. No time to falter. She had sealed her grief away. And the beacon followed her lead. You cannot suppress this, I told her within this shared mental space. The beacon reflects you. Her voice trembled for the first time. A sovereign does not fracture. Yes, I replied gently. She does. I guided her consciousness toward the pain she had locked behind psychic barriers. It resisted.
So did she.
But slowly, carefully, she let herself feel it. The chamber trembled. The beacon flared blinding white. And then it harmonized. Rebirth, the fractured crystal segments drifted back into alignment, drawn together by stabilized resonance. The chaotic pulses smoothed into steady waves of coherent signal. Across the galaxy, dormant Varelian colonies awakened to clarity. The beacon sang. The mental connection between us faded slowly, like dawn replacing night. When my senses returned fully, I was kneeling on the chamber floor, breath ragged. The Queen stood before me, radiant in a way she hadn't been before. The filaments along her crown shimmered with renewed vitality. It is whole, she said softly. Yes, I managed. She studied me with something unfamiliar in her nebula-bright eyes. Not authority, not command. Something far more dangerous. Recognition. The choice celebrations erupted across the citadel. The Varelian people regarded me as something between savior and anomaly. But I knew the truth. I hadn't fixed their beacon. She had. All I had done was show her that strength and vulnerability were not opposites. On the final night before the Astria was scheduled to depart, I was summoned once more to the signal chamber. This time, it was quiet.
Calm. Whole.
The Queen stood alone at its center. "You will leave," she said. "Yes. You could remain." It wasn't a command. It wasn't even persuasion. It was possibility. "You don't need me anymore," I said gently. Her gaze held mine. "That is untrue." The beacon pulsed softly above us, synchronized and steady. "I do not require repair," she continued, "but I value resonance." I felt the weight of what she was offering. Not captivity, not obligation, connection. Two species standing at the edge of something unprecedented. "You saved my people," she said, not with force, but with understanding. She stepped closer until we stood as we had during the merge. Only this time, there was no fracture between us. "You taught me that a sovereign may grieve," she whispered. "You reminded me that unity does not mean silence." Her hand lifted, not to command, but to rest gently against mine. "If you depart," she said, "the beacon will remain stable. Our worlds will endure." A pause. "But I will feel your absence." For a queen of a galactic civilization, it was the simplest confession imaginable. And the most profound. Departure, I returned to the Astria at dawn. Captain Rice raised an eyebrow when he saw my expression, but asked no questions. The ship disengaged from the Citadel's ring and slipped into open space. As we prepared for slipstream, my console flickered. A private frequency opened. Not fractured, not broken, perfectly clear. Her voice resonated through it. Human. A single word, not a summons. A greeting. I smiled. "Your Majesty." The beacon pulsed once, bright enough to register even from orbit. Then we entered slipstream. Epilogue. The signal that endures months later, Earth received a transmission from the Varelian expanse. Not a distress call. An invitation. Cultural exchange. Diplomatic dialogue. Shared research initiatives. Humanity stepped onto a larger stage because one broken signal had been answered. And sometimes, when I sit alone in the communications array and tune my instruments to a very specific frequency, I hear it. Not static. Not sorrow. Harmony. A steady pulse across the stars. A reminder that even civilizations can fracture. And that sometimes, fixing what's broken isn't about rebuilding the structure. It's about teaching it how to feel again. And somewhere, in a crystalline chamber orbiting a storm-wrapped world, an alien queen stands beneath a radiant beacon, whole, unafraid, and listening. Waiting not for rescue, but for resonance.